I didn't hear anything.
Okay, well, I'm going to give everybody one more minute. It is 3 o'clock. Hi, everyone. It is 3 o'clock, and we're going to start with the Yolo County Land Acknowledgement. We should take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we are gathered for this meeting. For thousands of years, the land has been the home of the Patwin people, including the Yoha Deche Winton Nation today. The Patwin people have remained committed to the stewardship of this land over many centuries. It has been cherished and protected as elders have instructed the young through generations. We are honored and grateful to be gathered here today on their traditional lands. And I'm going to pass it to Deb.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, if we're ready to start then. I'm going to start just by saying that if you have any questions, we're probably going to start to answer those about halfway through. So if you have them, please put them in the chat. And if we have time, we'll also answer some at the end. First, let me say this is a great time to plant a garden, to plant in the fall. Native plants spend their winters setting up roots, which makes them give a better start in first spring production. This is going to be a survey course for Zone 9 in Yolo County. The phrase climate ready plants comes from the UC Davis climate research, exploring how to deal with phenomenon called whiplash weather. And two examples of whiplash weather are flooding and wildfires caused by unpredictable changes in the weather and temperature. We'll talk about issues you may experience, adaptive strategies to deal with these issues, and along with time and budget constraints, which may affect your gardening plans. Part of our exploration will be listing native and non-native plants best suited to surviving high temperatures. Historically, landscape design has emphasized what we're calling understory in the landscape. And what we're going to do this time is also combine canopies, which are trees, which have usually not been talked about that much, but are going to be a great complement for the high heat that we're beginning to experience. So, first of all, let's say that 2023, in terms of climate, was the hottest year on record ever recorded. And 2024 is expected and is on track to be even higher. So we're still putting a lot of carbon dioxide into the air, and we're not pulling it down fast enough. So I tracked the month of July, and just in the month of July, these are all the days that were over 100 degrees. And you can see that it wasn't just, most of them weren't low 100 degrees, they were pretty high heat. This is unusual. 4 years ago, we had maybe 3-4 days of high heat during the summer. And so you can see that this is beginning. In fact, last year, I think there was probably only a week's worth of high heat. But this year, this is really accelerating. And I just wanted to point that out because it's one of the things that's going to cause you to want to do things differently for your yard. So let's take a look at a case of whiplash weather so you can understand what that is and how it relates to climate by looking at, let's see, it is unpredictable in terms of drought and flooding. And we had an incident last May, this last May, at the Honey Festival. Usually the Honey Festival is outdoors downtown. And there are 30 to 40,000 people who come from all over the place to go to this downtown event. And 3 days before the event was supposed to happen downtown, they started putting up notices that they were going to move it to the fairground because it was going to rain that day. So they did move it to the fairgrounds, and this is a picture of that was posted by KCRA because they came out and interviewed people that were at the fairgrounds. We thought we had a master gardeners table there, and we thought there weren't going to be many people. The same number of people that come when it's good weather came when it was not so great weather. And so they interviewed them. Everybody was happy inside, cozy, and they were happy about it. Now, the one thing that didn't show up in this particular interview was what was going on outside in the fairgrounds. There were, there's, when you come in, it's off of, on the fairgrounds, it's off a residential street, 2-lane, and there's about 50 yards of grass that people were coming into the park on. And it was, as you moved into the fairgrounds, it was bumper to bumper. It took 30 minutes to go 50 yards to get to the fairgrounds. You couldn't, you just moved very slowly. All that time it was raining on the grass people were parking on, tires were sinking into the grass. And the one thing I can say is this was true both going in and coming out of that fairground parking lot. And if there had been any kind of a medical emergency, it would have been very difficult to reach a person that was it was in distress. And so if anything like that had happened, this presentation might have been quite different. So that's kind of one way to look at this. The other thing to indicate that it's whiplash weather is that preceding this day for the Honey Festival, the temperatures had been 85 degrees or higher or a little bit lower. For that one day, it dropped down to 65 degrees. It was supposed to rain half day, it rained all day. And then the day after, it was in the 90s for the rest of the week. That is very typical of that kind of whiplash weather. Unpredictable and usually causing either wildfires or flooding. And I'm sure you've seen some of the flooding and wildfires, you know, that are taking place in other parts. We're just so far have been pretty lucky. Okay, so now we want to take a look at the kind of impact that we can make. And at this point, some people have looked at climate change and said, I just can't deal with it because there's nothing I can do. It's global. And I really don't see how I can have any impact, and it's frustrating because I have children and grandchildren, and I just don't know how to deal with it. So what I'm here to say is we can make a difference, and the difference is having to do with whether it's local strategies or global strategies. So looking at solutions you can use, if we look at global strategies, it's true that we're not going to, as one individual, be able to solve all the global problems that are happening. But as individuals in a community, think something like bees, they can do as a group much more and make more impact than they can with their individual contributions than they can do just as an individual in their group. So first of all, global strategies, one of the terms is mitigation. That's with mitigation, you're eliminating the problem. In particular, the problem that everybody is trying to mitigate is CO2 in the atmosphere, carbon dioxide. And so far, we're still putting more in than we're taking out. And then adaptions are ways of actually adjusting to the new normal. And we'll be talking a lot about those kinds of strategies locally because that's where we can make a lot of impact. So the first thing I would say is wherever you are, if you're familiar with gardening or not familiar, start with where you are and don't worry about that. And what you do, if you want to contribute, can be very different kinds of things. And we're going to take a look at that also. And then the second thing is gathering community efforts on adaptation. We'll be able to employ strategies to protect from climate change and weather. And an example of this is the Homegrown National Park. This was started 4 years ago by an ecologist and a professor in Maryland, and he does a lot of research, and he determined that we have 40 million acres of lawn in the United States at that point, and the problems we're having with losing wildlife extremely quickly also is because there's a loss of habitat. So he had figured out that if we convert 20 million of those acres back to some kind of wildlife habitat, then and that can be removing your lawn and just putting in native plants, or there are other things that you can do to create a wildlife habitat. But anyway, that we would be able to stop the loss of our biodiversity and animals that we're losing quickly, and also make a big impact on being able to pull CO2 down from the atmosphere, because a major way of doing this is using plants and trees to sequester carbon. And they do that by taking carbon dioxide in, putting it down through their plant into the ground, and eventually that turns into rock that doesn't come back again. So it ends up being a mitigation strategy. Okay, so what's happened so far in the 4 years since they started this, and I said the first year that they started, I have a wildlife habitat on my yard, and it's maybe 3,000 square feet. So I was one of the first people to put something up, and at that point I had like 0.02 acres on the map that you can register for the Homegrown National Park, and there was like 0.01% of the 20 million acres that was being reflected. So now this year, so far, they have 99,740 acres returned to sustainable gardens and registered by people. So if you have anything like that going on, you can register. And it's kind of rolling. This year, we have more people looking at trying to do lawn conversions or something having to do with climate plants than ever before. So this is still pretty low. I think it's like 1% of 20 million acres, but it's also only 38,000 people so far for 99,740 acres. So as people become more aware of this, if they wish to, they can put their yardage, their yards on there, and everything that we add is going to pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. So the other thing it does is reduce its drought. They're drought tolerant, so it's going to reduce your maintenance. The other thing I did was I looked through all the letters from the Waterwise tour of people who were on it. A lot of people said the same thing that I did when it was, well, why did you take out your lawn? And every one of us would say, because it's a lot less work than mowing your lawn every week. it's uphill to start putting it in, but afterwards, you're using less water and you're spending less time doing the kinds of things you did if you had your lawnmower out there every weekend. So, and the other thing is it supports biodiversity, and if you've got a good yard going, they're really fun to look at. People stop all the time and ask me what the smells are in my yard just because of the native plants, and it's usually sages. So anyway, I want you to notice down at the bottom tier, I'm putting these URLs in about where to locate these things. And there is or will be in the notes in the chat a document that has all of the URLs that you might want to go to listed in the document that you'll be able to download. So let's see what happens next. So now, oh good, we finally get to start looking at solutions, because that's probably what you really came for anyway. And again, the first thing to do, oh yeah, I wanted to say here that last year I went around talking to people looking for ways to take action on yards and things. And everybody that I talked to that was out was saying, I would really like to be able to take out my lawn or put in more plants, but I don't have the time and I don't have the money and I don't know where to start. So I would say, again, start where you are. And you can do very simple things to start. You don't have to spend a lot of money. For example, here is a patio that's just got a lot of container plants on it. And that's the way this person started, just to make a visual impact. You can do that. It could be a front bed or just part of a yard, or just a few containers to start with, whatever you wish, if you really want to start planting, because it will get you used to looking at plants and things that you might want to do in the future. There are a lot of free design tools online, which we will be taking a look at, and that will give you ways to get layouts for things and ways to do it that will make it easier. Okay, you can repurpose and reuse things that are existing in your yard, like rock pavers, bricks, anything like that, to make walkway designs. You can get free compost if you live in Yolo County or are a woodland resident. You can get free compost at the Yolo County landfill. And also, you can find cardboard from people. Actually, when I was doing over my lawn, I went to different places where they had really big pieces of cardboard, like refrigerators and dryers and things like that, because the bigger the cardboard, the less times you have to lay it down. So there, a lot of times people, corporations are willing to give you that kind of stuff, and they're giving it to you free, because it's just going to be something they have to put in the trash anyway. If you're working on a yard like that, sheet mulching will suppress weeds and cardboard as much as mulch. You usually have to put mulch on the top of it, but you may have to put less. The other thing that you can do is, a lot of people like raised beds, and it does make when you put in soil, you've got good soil. You don't have to do a lot to turn over the soil. And that's great, but it's getting more and more expensive to put those beds in. So another thing that you can do is just take, and I would recommend this for the backyard, you just lay out an area that you would like to start as a bed, and you put cardboard down in just that area, and then you start laying mulch on top and organic materials like you would do for a compost pile, and you keep raising that up. And after you get up a couple of feet, you can start planting it. And after you've planted that and reap the rewards of that, put over another layer of mulch and keep layering it up. And you don't really have to have containers around your beds to do that kind of gardening. So it really cuts the expense, just not have to contain that. oops, low mow lawns, you can go online and look for grasses that are actually drought tolerant grasses also that you don't have to mow if you still want to keep some lawn. And then there are low maintenance natives that you can buy. And instead of buying single plants, you can go online and find quarter-pound bags of seeds that I think they're up to around $14 now. That's 500 square feet. They used to be $9. But anyway, there are mixes of drought tolerant plants. You can go online and choose those, lay down your cardboard and mulch, put your seed over that and start growing that way. Again, less expensive than buying individual plants. But if you are going to buy individual plants, and you will at some point reach that, what you'll want to do is try to let those grow a bit and then start propagating off of them. And that's the way I've put a lot of things in my yard. And sometimes your trees, I've got redwood trees, and they propagate for me. Every year they put down a few little seeds that grow a plant, and I just dig them up and put them in a pot, and either I keep them and move them around. I've got so many now, I'm giving them to other people to go ahead and plant if they want that plant. So there are ways to do things like that that will cut your costs. Now, when it comes to looking at weather factors, when we're talking about whiplash weather and high heat, there are three factors that really are going to be things that you want to take a look at and try to modify. Temperature is the first one. We've talked about that. And what you may not know is that plants, their range for pollinating and growing is between 65 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Anything over that, and they begin to either grow more slowly, or in case of, you're looking at a test plot I've got here in my yard, and what's happening and what's happened during the summer has been that the plants are growing well enough, but they're dropping all of their buds. I have in this area, I've had off of this, there's a zucchini right here. I just harvested one zucchini after planting this in June, and I've barely got on this cucumber one little tiny cucumber. As the temperatures moderate and we get into the fall, they will probably start to put on fruit then and set fruit. But right now, especially not being, and sometimes they won't even pollinate, and that means you don't even have blooms. One of the good things, if there can be any good thing out of this type of heat, is we're in a moderate enough zone that at some point with adequate shade cloths, we'll be able to grow vegetables like this almost all the way through the winter. And because we don't really have a winter anymore, we have a very long fall, and then we get into spring. So one of the other things we need to have is light. After it gets down below 10 hours of light per day, plants start to grow less. And if you're putting over a shade cloth, one that looks like this, you're blocking light as well as shading it. You're cooling it off, but you're taking away some of the light. So you may slow down growth that way. Again, when you get into the winter months, we're in an area where sometime during midwinter, our light per day drops down to 9.5 hours a day rather than 10 hours. That means slower growth. But I'm going to experiment this winter with putting solar lights inside my hoop houses to see if I can get them, to add that half an hour of light back in and see if I can grow all the way through the winter. Okay, and then there's wind. high heat wind will kill your plants in a hurry. And you may have noticed we have some days where it's really windy with gusts that without some kind of protection really hurt your plants. So the first thing I'm going to show you here is this is called Illuminate, and it's the most expensive shade cloth. And what it does is it will give you 30 to 40% shade, but it lets through the light. And that means that that's probably one of the reasons why I'm getting blossoms. And that part's happening for me. Then I have here a frost cover that you can use, and you can use this during the winter or during the summer. It's the least expensive kind. Here I'm actually using it. You can see there's a plant under here, and that's a passion vine. And this year, what I'm doing is protecting it from its butterfly, which is the Gulf fritillary butterfly. And if I left it open, it would lay enough eggs within a couple of months to completely strip that whole passion vine. So what I'm doing is giving it a head start. There are actually 3 of them in there, trying to get enough foliage on that so that next spring or the following spring I can let them come back in and have their share. Okay, and then we're going to look at shade cloth here next, and you can get 30 to 40% shade cloth. You're not going to necessarily do this for your plants. If it's a garden where you're doing native plants, then you're going to use more like trees and shrubs to give yourself shade. Like I've got 3,000 square feet of that kind of area, and there's no way I would be putting shade cloth in any of it. But I have a lot of redbuds now that are very tall, and all of the plants that I have that are native plants so far are doing really well with the high heat. I just need to water them a bit more often to make sure that they stay okay. So now let's see if we can go here and look at the shade cloth. This is a typical shade cloth. If you're gardening, you may put plants under it for gardening. And 30 to 40% is the usual amount that you can put. This will work during the summer. Don't know if it would work during the winter or not. And then the other thing that you need to consider is making sure that when you buy that cloth, you make it long enough to either put a protection over the front here or just to close it off, because that wind whipping through there will do the same thing to your plants, even though they're low. Okay, so that's high heat protection. Now, there are ways to keep water on your landscape. Now we're looking at whiplash flooding. And there are 3 different ways that people usually do this. There are dry creek beds, rain gardens, and bioswales. This is a dry creek bed that was on the WaterWise tour. It's alongside a property, and you can see it has a few plants along the side, but not many. And it's meant to keep the water on the property, so it's going to sink down through here. But it's just to catch rainwater. It's not necessarily connected to a downspout, although it could be. And underneath this, it's going to be usually soil underneath the rock, in order to make sure that you keep that water from running into the street. Now, next, we are looking at a picture of how to keep water on your landscape, both starting with the rain garden. You've got your downspout here. You've got to get out about 5 feet from your house to do this. And then you can put a rain garden any place you want in your yard, as long as it's attached somehow to that downspout. And down in this part, you're looking at its soil. So this is meant to, it's going to be filled with water, and it's going to be meant to keep that water soaking and sinking down into the soil. And this gives you an idea of how you're going to fill it. You only have to go down 4 to 8 inches to get a good start. And then you fill it with soil and compost and top it with mulch. And this is a rain garden. That's at Cal Recycle. They have a lot of things at this particular site that shows you how to do rain gardens. I think they have bioswales also. They also have lists of plants that you can use around the rain garden. Now, at this point, I need to caution you when you're looking at things like lists of climate ready plants or plants that are supposed to go in a rain garden or a bioswale. They list a whole bunch of drought tolerant plants. And as long as they're plants that stay in their place, you're going to be just fine. But they also list things like California fuchsia at the site, and also I think coyote rush. Both of those spread. And the last thing that you want is to have those particular plants. I wouldn't plant them around them, because I can tell you from having California fuchsia on my site, it will go anywhere. It doesn't need water, but it doesn't mind water. And it will keep going, and you will have to keep taking it out. And that's kind of the last thing you want to have to do when you're trying to maintain either this kind of a site or a bioswale. Now, a bioswale is kind of like, it looks sort of more like a dry creek bed, but it's got it's the way that both of these pull in water and keep it is with plants. And so you can see again, the depression is going to be about the same, 4 to 8 inches deep with some kind of rock. And you want the rock big enough that it's not going to, mash down into the soil. Here's a combination dry creek bed rain swale. And you can see back here, there's the downspout that's coming down here. You can't see it's coming through here, but it's coming in this direction. And it will pour water into here and very likely keep it in and not run off into the street. This one's pretty deep. Now in back here, there are red buds all the way across here. Red buds go straight up. They might bush, but they're not going to spread. Over here, there's a deer grass, really great. And I think this is a type of sage that's growing upward too. Good plants to have around your bioswale or rain garden. And then right down here is California fuchsia. This is the one I'm saying, do not plant close to your creek bed, or you will be digging out rocks and fuchsia every year. Especially, it's going to like that water. So anyway, just a warning there of something that might happen. Okay, now we're going to go on to useful websites that are going to give us climate ready plans. And we're looking at, when I said climate ready, it means they're going to, their best guess is they're going to make it all the way through really high heat. And the first list comes from UC Davis Arboretum. They've been doing research on it, and they have a climate ready toolkit on their website. Now you can either go through, this will be in that document, the ecological guide document. You can use this, or you can click on this in the presentation here to go to that site. There are at least 3 pages worth of different kinds of descriptions for the site, how to use it, pollinators, different kinds of things. And let's take a look at this list really quickly. Here's the list that you're going to see on that site, which can be downloaded. And I think we can, not sure, I guess we can't, I don't see down here that I can actually pull this up and make it larger. But you're going to see across here different characteristics of the plants for each of these plants. Some are natives, some are not natives. So you might want to look out for that, but it's going to give you all the information that you need to plant it in the right places. It gives you water conditions, how large the plant is, and things like that. If you're new to this, it's great to have those lists to start out, but you're probably going to want to visit some places too to see what they look like. And you can go to the Arboretum and look at these plants actually right over there by the teaching nursery. I think they've got some around the nursery now, and then you can walk straight out of there into their fields. It has a lot of native plants that have been that are drought tolerant. Also, a lot of hummingbird plants. So then the other thing that Davis is going to talk about is how to plant your yard. They do have some designs to show you. And if you're interested in sustaining biodiversity, one of the things you're going to want to do, is plant plants that they like, but also plant them in drifts with different colors that may attract them. And part of what you're doing, the purpose of that is to get them in. And you want to drift because if they're coming in by air, they can see a whole drift better than an individual plant. And then they're all in the same place so that they can feed and find pollen without having to move large distances, which makes it just harder for pollinators to sustain themselves. So that is on their designs at the site also. Okay, now we've talked about our plants. And so let's see, I'm trying to look at what time we've got here. Where are we?
3:35. You had 2 questions from the first part, and we're good to go until 4. Did you want me to read you the questions?
Yeah, let's do the questions right now before we switch into trees.
Can grass sequester CO2?
It is such a minimal amount that isn't worth trying to use grass to sequester CO2. It does, but it's minimal. I mean, really minimal.
The second question is, are there worst places for rain gardens? I live on a moderate slope and I have to work to slow down runoff.
Yeah, the pictures that I showed you back there show that rain garden at the top. What I would do, and in fact, what I am doing this year in my garden is I'm putting that bioswale 5 feet out from the drop, like that creek, and then I'm putting a rain garden depression at the bottom, closer to the street, and some of that may take a little bit of estimating in terms of what you want to do. Do you know how, I don't know how much rain you get, but if you expect that you're going to get a lot of rain, you may want to do a larger rain garden down at the end of that bioswale. But that's what the slope will help you with. It'll just bring it right down there for you. If you put it right up next to the downspout and you have a lot of rain, you could get splash over if you have if you have nothing else there to guide the water to any place else.
No more questions.
Okay, great. All righty. So now we're going to go to trees, and I really hope I rock your world. I really do here, because trees are something that people haven't taken a look at. I just mentioned to you, in this high heat, the trees that I have are shading the rest of the understory. And other than having, I'm just not losing anything in my wildlife garden at all. So that's the first year that it's really had to be tested. But there are other things about trees that are on, let's see, the Woodland Tree Foundation, there's a website, and I'm going to show you where it is, has a brochure with 25 trees on it. And you can get trees from them for free. You can get 2 trees for free. And not only can you get those trees for free, you can call them up and ask them which ones would be good to plant. You can get advice. and they will come out and plant them for you. And they're 15-gallon trees. They pay $200 a piece for them, and they get them because they have a grant from CAL FIRE. They've been doing this for a long time. So they'll put them in for you. And if you've got the room, and the only thing that you have to do to work with these trees is the first year, they need to be deep watered so that they get long tap roots as well as the feeder roots at the top. After that, you don't have to do anything, and they'll take care of themselves. So let's take a look at this. These 5 trees down here, you're not going to want. They are so huge, like 200 and 1,000 years. They last a long time, but they're the size you would plant at a corporate building, or at some of them are planted at the University of Davis, where they've got larger plots. So those are out. But these 20 trees, and there are different size scales, last from 40 to 100 years or 100 to 400 years. Now that means, and they're going to sequester carbon. That's the whole deal with trees, is they, like I was saying, they take in the CO2, put it down to the roots. And, and if you've got masses of trees, then that's what they're using for mitigation at a global level, is forests. So that's their natural way of doing it. So anyway, you've got that. So you've got 20 trees that could make an impact over generations for your grandchildren in terms of sequestering carbon, maybe your great-grandchildren even. Every city has to meet a canopy mandate or sequestering carbon mandate by 2035. So you would be contributing to that. And then you're sustaining biodiversity because you're going to be hosting birds, insects, mammals. All of that is in the canopy, and there's minimal disturbance if you want to keep your lawn on the ground, because the ecosystem actually exists in the canopy. And I mentioned before, there's a video that Doug Tallamy has that's on that list. You can go and look at what it's like to have trees and what kinds of contributions they're making. Our oak tree, Quercus lobata, is a keystone tree. So that's an advantage. It's hardly anything to do if you've got this space. It's not going to cost you any money. And it could last, it could make an impact for a long time. So then that's going on. 2 weeks ago, there was a study in a Science Digest announcing something that no one ever knew about trees. And they'd been looking at the forest canopies, and what they found was tree bark actually removes methane from the atmosphere. Tree bark or methane is the other large greenhouse gas that's causing us problems. And they looked at it and they figured in terms of globally, the climate mitigation, this tree bark that's absorbing that methane is actually adding 10% to the mitigation that we never knew was going on. So part of what that's saying is there's a worldwide potential for helping combat climate change by adding many more forests or restoring forests that have been cut down. And it just reinforces a crucial role for mitigating climate change. Now, another 2 weeks after that, scientists, remember we're talking about the accelerated heat, and if you're paying attention to that, we're not supposed to, the degrees we're at on the average that we're not supposed to go over is 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit for globally. And it's actually moving faster towards 2.0, which is when we get tipping points, massive die-off of different kinds of things. So they noticed that this methane was going on. And they're announcing a three-pronged approach or strategy to not, methane is not going to solve all the problems, but adding more forest could slow down the acceleration that we're seeing now if we get busy and start planting more of these trees. So this approach is to reduce emissions and implement strategies to bring down methane emissions across the various sectors, as well as the strategies for CO2. Coordinate and address the methane and carbon dioxide emissions simultaneously. So again, so that we can slow this down some, and then incentivize, put a program together to incentivize and enforce abatement, encouraging actions to reduce methane. You know that in our landfills, methane's coming off of our landfills. So if they get programs going to give people money in different communities to take care of abating methane that has not been there before, this is another good news point for us in a world where there aren't many good news points. So that's trees. You can go to the Woodland Tree Foundation if you want to get free trees, and you can look at this brochure or download it and look at the different kinds of trees and see if there's something that you like. If you can't tell, call them up. Within a couple of weeks, they'll have somebody call you back and give you advice on trees and sign you up if you'd like to get a tree. I've been out there planting these trees before, and I was in a neighborhood where people had huge trees on their lots that they were still planting other trees. And they actually went, one woman went down the block and talked to her brother and brought him up and got him signed up because he had no idea this program was going on. When I was at the Honey Festival, I found out other people too were putting in trees because they didn't know about this program. They might get a rebate from the city, which is $75, but that's nothing compared to getting them for free. So anyway, that's a great program. Then in Tree Davis, they have what's called the community canopies. And this is a volunteer program. If you wanted to do nothing else, or you've already got all this stuff done, you can volunteer there and help plant trees in the community. They have no rebate program for residential. It's all community land-based projects, and no rebates from the city either. But one of the things that you can do, and I'm going to, this is a picture of one of their community plants. They've been refurbishing the tree memorial grove outside of the city. And this is one of the landscapes that has been put in. So when I was telling you before, if you haven't seen plants before, walking through places that are already planted will give you a good idea of what you might do, what you like and what you don't like. Here are a bunch of trees back here. These are shrub-like plants. And then there are some very small ones here. So this is their whole intention is to bring back biodiversity, to lower heat islands in their area, everything that you would want for a community to have in large-scale places in order to make it more livable. Also, when it comes to pollution, pulling down these things, carbon and methane out of the air in terms of, I haven't got a lot of data on pollution, but we have a lot of pollution that's causing disease problems for people. So you can volunteer there. Now I have, at this point, Solano County and Elish Staya has volunteered to come on and talk to us about the kinds of rebates that they have in Solano County. And so are you there, Elise? Can we hear you?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, great. I can see you too.
Great. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you for the great introduction and all the information. Hi, yes, so my name is Elise and I work for Solano County Water, and some of you on this call might be in Solano County or on the border. So we do offer a few programs, and even if you're not in Solano County, we do have a lot of information that you can use and a lot of resources that can help you plan your garden. Featured on there is our Strive for 25 list. It's a list that we put together with some local nurseries in town on either side of Solano County. And it is a list of 25 native plant, almost all native, but 25 climate ready and some native plants that can be used in your yard, whether or not you're transforming your yard. So we kind of use this in coordination with local nurseries, and it also kind of builds upon some of the resources that Deborah had talked about earlier, such as UC Davis. And for those of you that are in Solano County, we do also have some programs, just like Tree Davis and Woodland, where it's not a free tree, unfortunately, but we do offer rebates for the purchase of qualifying, climate ready, and native trees. Most of those are natives. And if some of you are inspired today from what Deborah is talking about, we offer rebates for taking out your grass and replacing it with climate ready landscapes. Basically everything that Deborah mentioned, whether it's a rain garden, native plants, just maybe a lawn alternative. We just encourage people to take advantage of those resources through the county, and depending on where you're living as well, there's also additional city rebates on top of that for Solano County residents. But again, even if you're not a Solano County resident, please visit our website. There's a lot of useful tools, and we do work closely with City of Davis and City of Woodland as well. So I know that was a really quick overview, but please, I'll be on the call on the Zoom towards the end if you have any questions for us.
Great. Are we good now, or
Yeah, I think that's it. Pretty much just kind of a shout out to the programs we offer. Just in case anyone was wondering, it is $1.50 per square foot. So you can get up to $1,500 to take out your grass, and you can get up to $100 on qualifying trees. So just giving you
pretty
a
great.
little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that really is pretty great. Yeah.
Hopefully it helps.
Okay. Thank you very much. And if there are questions at the end, please come back on, because that will be terrific.
Yeah.
Now, let's see, Tree Davis. I gave you did I go backwards?
Yes.
Oops. Let's see. Well, I guess I'm going to go forwards like this. Now,
There
wait.
you go.
I'm glad somebody's keeping tabs on me. Okay. Now, again, for eco-regional planting guides, this is one that I discovered that I really love. If you go to this site, it's called the Pollinator Partnership, and you go under their resources tab and put in your zip code, you can download this brochure. It's 20 pages long. It will tell you everything you ever wanted to know about pollinators if you know nothing about them, how to plant for them, things like that. And there are three pages that I have never seen anyplace else. And the first one is just the number of pollinators that are in our zone, what they are identified. The second page is, especially if you're looking to try to help with bees and butterflies, it actually lists out the bees that are attracted, or the pollinators that are attracted to specific plants. And then the third page, which is really cool, is the progression of blooms across the summer. So you can get a continuous bloom attracting pollinators all summer long by planting the different plants that are going to bloom at different times during the summer. So that one's it's yeah, I can't put it on my bookshelf because it's just paper, but it is something that I refer to all the time. I think it's just a wonderful document. Okay. And then there is a California Native Plant Society has had a website for a long time, which will, if you go to, it's called calscape.org. You used to be able to put in your zip code and it would give you a map and showing you all of the plants that were in your area that you could plant successfully. And it just had great descriptions of things like the water that they take, their height and width, the animals that they attract, just everything that you would like to know. So it was a great place to go. And I just went back there the other day to make sure I had the URL right. And it's a brand new site. I mean, it still does just those things, but it has a lot of other incredible features. First of all, you can do the look at the natives that are in your area by zone. You can find nurseries in your location that are in your area by zone that sell those plants. And I imagine too, nurseries out of your area that sell your zone plants. And then professional landscapers that are in your zone if you don't want to do it yourself. And then a garden planner, which is a really neat idea. It's kind of like an internal app where it will ask you questions about designing a garden and then fill in the plants for you. And so if you wanted to do it yourself, you could get a good idea of your garden and what likes and dislikes that you have. And that's also a good idea if you want to talk to a landscaper, because if you start out and you don't know anything, it's hard to start you're going to get somebody talking to you without you being able to necessarily talk back, and you won't know if there's something you don't like and don't necessarily want to have in your yard. So then the other thing that they have is a section for care for plants, which is much larger than what I'm putting this first dot on here, bullet. But this is something I've never seen either. Every master gardener will tell you when you plant your plants in the fall, or whenever you plant them, you need to water them for the first year. Again, what you're trying to do is establish roots for the plant. And then after that, you can let go of that. But we've always just said, you need to water them for the first year. This has an actual bi-monthly schedule that tells you how much water to do every 2 months, the watering schedule, and it gets less and less as you get towards the end of the year. So I think this is now a fabulous site that really can help you out a lot for anything that you would like to do. And they have shrubs, but I don't believe they have trees. I'm not positive because I didn't check to see if they have that now. Okay. So we're about to wind up here. We've talked about combating or adapting to climate change, keeping water on your landscape, creating sustainable landscapes to preserve ecosystems with native drought-tolerant plants and heat-tolerant plants, and then strengthening adaptability for plants and animals by preserving habitats for new plantings or creating new habitats to replace lost ones. And that is our solution summary for today. Let's see, where are we? 3:57. So if we have any more questions, this would be the time to ask them.
There are no questions.
Okay, then we're winding up, and this is the last thing that I always like to wind up with is a quote by Audrey Hepburn, which is, and I believe it, to plant in a garden is to believe in tomorrow. So thank you very much. I appreciate you all attending.